Hello all, Steve here. I'm trying to get caught up with videos, and you can see here now we're working on version October 24th here, so it's been a while, and there's a lot of logic that has been included, and in this one I want to touch on the chop box and kind of explain how that works. First of all, in the version you'll notice that I'm running 8.0. But more than likely, most everybody's using the most recent update where you got to sign in a million times a day on version 8.1, and and then so it's the same thing. The reason why that is like that, just so you guys know, is VWAP. That's the only reason. And the reason why is there's one line of code in there that if you do not have a lifetime license of Ninja, this will just say, not available kind of thing. So unfortunately, that's the way it is. But anyway, getting back to the chop box, I want to explain this one here. If you enable it, then these settings become live regardless if you're plotting it or not. So the way the chop box works is I use the Ninja Renko, and I'm typically using for NASDAQ, I'm using a 13.2 chart on a Ninja Renko. But I don't, that's just for price movement. I want to see bigger charts. So quite frankly, I'll probably change this default to a 24.5. If you do change it to like a range or something like that, then the value for that one here would be, depending on what size you're using, a 21 or 34, whatever size you're using. But I like the Ninja Renko, so I'm going to do that. And I'm using these two here. So and then the other thing would be the breakout percentage. So in other words, once it breaks out of that range, how much more do you want to add on to that, if you will? And a lot of my numbers are all Fibonacci numbers. That's why I use these. But if I said 0, it would just be this 34.5 range, back and forth based on that chart, and with no extra. So if you can go to a bigger, higher time frame chart, or you can just throw like a 10% or whatever percentage you want to go on top of that to breach it. It has to breach that. Then the other one is how many trades allowed in each direction. So for instance, if you're in a range, it'll by default allow you to take one within that range. And if it gets stopped out, well, obviously if it doesn't get stopped out, it's not going to take another one because there's not an add-on. But if you do get stopped out, it won't take another one until it breaks out of that range and gets into the next level, rather above or below. Now, of course, you could change that, and it is in each direction. So if you're doing a long, it'll take one long only, and if it turns and reverses and does a short, it'll take one short only. And if they fail and don't get out of that range, then that'll be the end of it. 9 times out of 10, again, depending on settings, you're not going to get a short and a long. I mean, I shouldn't say never, but chances are if you're doing longs, it's going to be long only, and shorts. But there are times if you're at the highs or the lows, it could reverse, and so you can get in the opposite direction depending on what your things are. I always use construction orange as my colors, but obviously you can change that. And then my opacity, I have very faint if I am going to plot it. Right now I'm going to plot it so you can see it, but I have it very faint because I don't want it very powerful. And if you want to see some numbers behind the scenes that kind of make it, you could turn that on, but it gets way too busy. That's more for if you're doing back testing. If you're looking at things for certain reasons, you might want to turn that on to find out what levels and things like you can play around with it, but it gets too busy, so 9 times out of 10 it's off. Needless to say, so let's do a 34.5 chart, 0 breakout percentage. I'm not even going to take any trades anyway. I'll do a very faint, or maybe I should just turn it up a little bit so we can see it. And that's it. We turn some EMAs off. So let's go with that. The other thing I might want to do is put on a 34.5 chart just so we can see it. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got a 34.5 chart on here just so we can visualize it, and I threw on the pivots just so we can kind of see where we're at here. And you can see how the chop box is formed. It's looking at the highs, looking at the low pivots, and then it's doing the calculation. And so you could see once this starts rolling that it'll start to form inside of Helix, and it only is going to move forward, so it's not going to give you backward It's not going to show historical stuff. It's only going to grab information going forward. It's just set up right now. It calculated. It takes a little bit to calculate. So you can see right here that we're at the high. And again, I don't have any extra percentage added to this. And there's the low. So there's our box. So basically, this is our range based on that particular chart. Now, with NASDAQ, I'm going with the bigger one. If you're doing with a crude or ES or something, you can bring it down to a smaller one. But using this particular time frame, the 13.2 is, I mean, I just use this for price movement to see wicks and things like that. But if you used that time frame chart, there'd be boxes all over the place. So it'd be a little too small, and it would break out of the box and then would form a new box, which would give you another trade, which basically defeats the purpose. So we only want to take one trade in this area and then call it a day from there. So that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it. It'll take a trade. Well, you could do whatever you want manually. So if you did that, you could do whatever you want to do. But if you're in the auto mode and you made it active, it's only going to take one per direction in here. So I'm just going to turn it off a little bit. So you'll see how it forms, and this gives you a visualization of it. So once I break out of this box, so if a trade setup comes within this area, which I've turned them all off, so it's not going to get one. But if one did, it would, take one. And I'm waiting for it to break out of this because you'll see what will happen once it breaks out. Okay, so we just broke out of it, and then we just created a new one. So this one shut off, and now it's gone into another one. So if there was another setup in here, it would take it because we broke out of it. So we're out of this zone. I don't know if there's a, hold on a second, let me get the name of that book. There you go. If you want to, there's an audio book available on Amazon, or a real book if you're a bigger reader. I like to listen to things in the car. But anyway, How I Made $2 Million in the Stock Market, and it's by Nicholas Darvis. And it's back in the 50s, it's been a while, but it's been back in like the 50s or something like that, or maybe even earlier. It might have been the 30s or something. But anyway, it's like based on the block theory, if you've ever heard of that. So it'd be a good read if you're interested in listening to that. But it's the kind of same theory. It's blocks, if you will. So here's an area. We broke out of it right here. Now, if I would have had an extra 10%, then we may or may not have been out of it. So, and now we're going into the next one. So anyway, that's the theory of it. That's pretty much about it. And that's how it works. So, and this 34.5 chart that I'm on is using the pivots that are going to be available shortly. They're inside a Helix, but I'm working on an independent one for that. So anyway, that'll be available soon. But that's it for now. Thanks.